Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in this session, Crowding in Private Finance. My name is Céline Tougeron. I'm one of the project advisor in the LIFE Climate and LIFE Energy unit organizing this event today. It's my pleasure to moderate this session. This is one of the 13 topics that has been part of the 2023 call for the Clean Energy Transition Sub-Program. This call opened on the 11th of May and is open until the 16th of November. So today we are going to go through this crowding in private finance, so-called PRIVAFIN topic. In case you have not joined the right session, it's still time to change. You need to go back to the B2Match page where you can register for the other session you would have liked to attend, and then you will be able to access the other session. If you are in the right session, then welcome again. This topic, PRIVAFIN, aims to increase the amount of private finance allocated to energy efficiency and small-scale renewables, by establishing two things: innovative financing scheme for investment in sustainable energy, the so-called scope A of this topic, or engaging with financial institutions to develop financial products and adapt their investment practice. This is a scope B. And the two scopes will be part of the presentation today. Now it's my pleasure to basically give you the overview of the agenda of this session. And to introduce our four speakers. So first of all, Mr. Sanchez Rivero from DG Energy will present share a latest update on energy policies that are directly relevant for this topic. And then we will have two colleagues, Mr. Sansoni and Mr. Boulier, who will present in detail the PRIVAFIN topic, the two scopes I mentioned previously. And last but not least, we will hear a project testimony of the project called Finergodom. And this will be presented by Mrs. Joanna Ogronichuk, who is working for CAPE. And this is a project that has been selected out of a previous call, not of LIFE, but Horizon 2020, but addressing very similar market issues and barriers. And therefore, we invited her to share her experience as a project coordinator and leader. And then we will have, at the end of the session, a question and answer session. It's really important for us that this session remains interactive, and therefore you can all access through the QR codes or through the website slido.com by putting the reference of this session on the EU Live 23. And then you can select the room corresponding to this session. We are the session number 8. And then you directly have access to the question and answer session, where you can either post new questions or vote for the questions that have been already deposited by the other participants. So without further ado, I'm very glad to welcome Mr. Sanchez Rivero, who is team leader in the financing for energy efficiency sector in DG Energy in the energy efficiency unit. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Okay, many thanks, Céline, and it's indeed my pleasure to participate today in the live the info days that presents the PRIVAFIN topic. As I will, without further ado, I will start with my policy context presentation. So go to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So we will start. I always like to start with the wide policy context, and in our particular case, it is the European Green Deal. You know that the European Green Deal is the top policy priority of the European Commission, and it is aiming at making Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And Green Deal is very real, so it is not just a vision, but it is really the European growth strategy. And the objective is to really make the EU economy sustainable by turning climate challenges into opportunities across all policy areas. So if we go to the next slide, please. And a cornerstone of the European Green Deal is the European Climate Law that sets in stone the increased ambition of the EU. It establishes a binding 2030 target to achieve the reduction of 55% of the greenhouse gases emission. Also sets a process for setting a climate target for 2040 and a commitment to negative emissions by 2050. And the answer to address the substantial challenge that it is set by the European Green Deal, that also includes, you can see also in the slide, the renovation wave that has the objective to double the building renovation rates in Europe. Well, the reply to that is the Fit for 55 package that was adopted by the Commission in July 2021. The package includes a set of interconnected initiatives and that translate the European Green Deal into the different areas of our economy, including transport, industry, agriculture, and of course energy. And because green energy transition is at the very center of the European Green Deal, since energy production and consumption represent 75% of the Union greenhouse gases emission. Notably, the Fit for 55 package includes a revision of the Renewable Energy Directive, recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive, and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, together with other relevant proposals for the energy transition, such as, for instance, the extension of the emission trading scheme to heating and transport, the social climate fund, addressing the social challenges of the transition. Going to the next slide, please. Russia's unprovoked military aggression on Ukraine created security of energy supply crisis and also aggravated an energy market crisis with rising gas and electricity prices. In this difficult context, the REPowerEU plan that was adopted by the European Commission last year in May is the EU plan to end the dependency on Russian fossil fuel imports by 2027 at the latest. So that goes on top of the Fit for 55 package of proposals, and this REPowerEU plan puts forward an additional set of actions that you can see in the slide with details and a number, but with the main objective of save energy, of diversifying the supplies, and of quickly substituting fossil fuels by accelerating European clean energy transition, and in particular, notably the deployment of renewables. And finally, to smartly combine investments and reforms. Go to the next slide, please. And I will give you some details on the recasting of the Energy Efficiency Directive. The co-legislators found the provisional political agreement on the ED last March to reduce the final energy consumption at EU level by 11.7% in 2030. National energy savings obligations, that you know it is a very important part of the Energy Efficiency Directive, are substantially strengthened. They're going from 0.8% to 1.49% annual in average, with a stepwise approach. It also introduced a dedicated article on energy efficiency first principle to ensure that this principle is applied in practice. It also updates the definition of energy efficiency, district heating and cooling, introducing in particular the 2050 trajectory for efficient district heating and cooling systems, and reduce the thresholds for any audits and energy management systems. Moreover, the co-legislators, the Council and the Parliament also agreed to set a specific obligation for the public sector to achieve an annual energy consumption reduction of 1.9%, excluding certain sectors, such as, for instance, public transport or armed forces. In addition to that, member states will also be required to renovate each year at least 3% of the total floor area of buildings owned by public bodies. It also introduces measures to alleviate energy poverty. This is very important. And last but not definitely not least, and in particularly relevant for the topic that we are presenting today, the EED reinforces the provisions on financing to leverage private capitals. Member states will need to facilitate the establishment of financial facilities or use the existing one to facilitate multiple streams of financing and the combination of grant financial instruments and technical assistance. They will also need to set up pre-development assistance facilities at national, regional, or local level, and adopt measures to ensure that energy efficiency lending products are offered widely, and to facilitate the implementation of innovative schemes, in particular on bill and on tax financing schemes. So go to the next slide, please. I'd also like to give you some details on the proposal, Commission proposal for the revision of the energy performance of building directive. As probably most of you know, sector particularly important when it comes to energy efficiency, when it comes to the decarbonization of our continent. It upgrades the existing regulatory framework to reflect the higher ambitions and the present needs in climate action, but also social action, and provides your countries with the feasibility. That's the idea, is to provide with the flexibility also needed to take into account that there are differences across the different building sectors across Europe. Let me introduce you some of the main measures and highlight in particular the gradual introduction of minimum energy performance standards to trigger the renovation of the worst performing buildings. Also, the introduction of a new standard for new buildings, a more ambitious vision for buildings to be zero emission, and enhanced long-term renovation strategies will be now renamed into national building renovation plans. Increased reliability, quality, and digitalization of energy performance certificates, with energy performance classes to be based on common criteria. Definition of deep renovation and the introduction of building renovation passports, the modernization of buildings and their systems, and better energy system integration for heating, cooling, ventilation, etc. So if we go to the next slide, please, and I'm just entering into the final part, and that it is on the financing for energy efficiency. So we are in the way to have a very strong regulatory framework. I mean, the Fit for 55 package has been adopted in a substantial part. There are other initiatives that are really in the way of being adopted very soon. So we are going to set really a very strong regulatory framework, as just mentioned, but we also need to make sure that funding and financing is available at the necessary scale of this objective and of this challenge. So in order to achieve the objectives that are set by the European Green Deal, the Fit for 55, the recovery package, and the multi-annual financial framework 21-27 are really a great opportunity to do that. Out of the total 1,800 billion euros that are part of the MFF 21-27, 30% of these resources are dedicated for climate actions. That means that the resources for climate action are duplicated compared to the previous programming period. When it comes to energy efficiency, the multiplication factor is around 3.5 times compared to the previous programming period. So this is really very good news. I mean, the support, the financing for energy efficiency is organized, if I can put it that way, in three main categories. First, it would be direct investments. So here we have the Recovery and Resilience Facility, Cohesion Policy Funds, for instance, Modernization Fund, and the Future Social Climate Fund. Second would be the leverage of private investments through different ways, but particularly InvestEU, PF4EE, or the EEF. And the third category would be the one related to market uptake, policy enhancement activities, and research and innovation. And here it is where we have LIFE, Clean Energy Transition Program, also Horizon Europe, Build for People, or for instance, the Innovation Fund. So if we go to the next slide, and that will be the final one. And I think this is the one that is the most important one. And the message is highlighted at the very beginning of it. It is that really leveraging private financing is conditional to achieve the Union's climate and energy targets. They are estimated, in order to deliver that, investment needs are estimated around 3,000 billion by 2030, And our estimations is that the total public funding that will be triggered by EU budget combined with national budgets could cover around 10 to 20% of this effort. So in this context, and also considering that there is a large investment gap, it is, as I said, it is crucial, it is fundamental to increase significantly the amount of private financing that goes to energy efficiency. So the drivers to deliver on that, first, it is to make sure that public funding are targeting energy efficiency in the most appropriate and efficient way. Public funding can be a catalyst, but it cannot address the challenge by itself. So it is not even close to address the challenge by itself. Therefore, financing models based on grants are insufficient, and because they are really consuming a lot of resources, a lot of public resources, right? So what it is important is focusing on combined and comprehensive packages that will include financial instruments, grants, and technical assistance. So financing schemes like this should be the default option. We should focus on financial schemes that could be implemented at large scale, considering the challenge that we have, and that they can deliver massive energy savings that are linked to performance. I will go into the end of my presentation, and I would like to highlight as well that we need to stimulate the demand for energy efficiency. So we are in a sector that the demand is fundamental. It's always fundamental in all sectors. Here it is particularly fundamental, and we need to be able to stimulate it appropriately. And the financial schemes need to take this very much into account, and by different ways, by removing the upfront costs and barriers to decide to invest on energy efficiency. Well, finally, the further development and the increased access to dedicated energy efficiency lending products as basically included and adopted under the Energy Efficiency Directive, being unsecured loans or being secure loans, mortgages, is also fundamental. So I will conclude, and I will finalize by highlighting, as you can see here, the importance of the PRIVAFIN topic within the call of the LIFE CET 2023 in this political context, and consider the financing challenge that we have ahead of us. Many thanks, and I think I pass back the floor to you, Celine.
Thank you a lot, Carlos. I think this is a very important messages for the potential applicant to this PRIVAFIN topic. So now, without further ado, I think I'm going to look at my colleague Michele and Adrien, who will give us a detailed description of the two scope. So Michele, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Celine, and thank you, Carlos, because the message was very clear. So we need significant investments in energy efficiency and in small-scale renewables as a complementary feature, and because they are needed to achieve the European energy and climate goals. And I think also what was very clear is that public funding alone is not sufficient. So private capital is conditional to meet those targets and needs to be mobilized. And this is exactly the aim of the PRIVAFIN topic, which supports that focus with two scopes. So what we call scope A, so the development of innovative financing schemes for investments in sustainable energy, and the scope B, so the mainstreaming, which aims to make sustainable energy investments more attractive to private investors. Just a clarification on the term sustainable energy, which is meant in this topic as energy efficiency plus small-scale renewables, with a particular focus on energy efficiency, as it was stressed by Carlos. Next, please. A word also on the eligibility of proposals. So they must be submitted by at least 3 applicants from 3 different eligible countries. So at the moment, the EU 27 plus Iceland, Ukraine, and Moldova. And the estimated funding for the proposals is up to euro 1.5 million. This is, however, indicative and doesn't prevent the submission of proposal with a different budget. Next, please. So let's dive now into the scope A, which is innovative financing schemes for sustainable energy investments. So the focus is really to set up those innovative financing schemes to leverage private funds. They need to have a dedicated focus on energy efficiency, and they should be developed and established in at least one eligible country. However, there should be an ambitions and there should be efforts described in the proposal to expand the schemes developed in at least one eligible country to other additional eligible countries. So in other words, the minimal eligibility conditions that I just described are valid. So you need to team up with at least 3 organizations from 3 eligible countries, but the development of the financing scheme, so the aim of your proposal, can happen in just one country or in at least one country, but you have to explain how you will upscale and replicate and expand in other countries. The financing schemes or the financing scheme needs to be operational by the end of the project, which means that it has to be ready to finance investments. And that also means that investments may happen after the end of the project. Of course, we would require an effort from the applicants to estimate the level of those investments, even though they can happen after the end of the project. So the topic means that the topic mentions some financing schemes. There is an indicative list in the text of the topic, and just for you as a guidance and as an indication and then as an inspiration on what to propose. But also to give you the idea that the overview and the scope of the topic is quite large. So we talk about equity, debt, mezzanine financing. You can address de-risking instruments. You can develop energy services, for instance, energy performance contracting. You can work on building renovation with on-bill, on-tax, and building-based financing. You can address refinancing mechanisms, securitization vehicles, green bonds, but also work at very local level with citizen financing and crowdfunding for energy efficiency. So again, this is a guidance, this is an inspiration. It's an indicative list, but we hope that it gives you a good support for developing an excellent proposal. And if we go to the next slide, I would like just to highlight some very important elements that needs to be addressed despite the time of the scheme that you will choose. So we said that you have to establish an innovative and operational financing scheme for energy efficiency and integrated renewables in at least one eligible country. We could add that you can build on or upscale existing schemes which prove to be successful. For instance, under technical assistance facilities such as project development assistance, PDA, or the ELENA from the European Investment Bank. And the origin, let's say, of the successful and existing financing schemes can be in Europe, but can be also outside Europe. It is important, very important, to address the provision of finance and the structure of the demand, in particular at regional and national level. And this is connected with the fact that it is essential that you demonstrate that you understand the context in which you will establish your financing schemes. And this context is made of the target regions which you will address and the sectors that you will address. So you really have to define the context because the development of the financing scheme, the innovative financing scheme, needs to be connected to that. And you have to describe in which way it is connected and related. You have to, please go back. You have to justify the innovation element in the financing scheme to be developed, and in case how it complements existing and available funding schemes. And also you have to demonstrate the market potential of the scheme in terms, for instance, of business case and financial viability. And we've also seen that it's very important to plan the replication and rollout of the scheme beyond the regions target for the establishment. So again, at least the establishment in at least one country, and a clear effort to replicate in other countries, in at least 2 other countries. If you go to the next slide, yes, I just want here to list some relevant projects from Horizon 2020 and Life Clean Energy Transition, which hopefully can inspire you in proposing a new excellent project. So you can see really from the description that they addressed different areas and different types of financing schemes. For instance, the first one is called SEIFA and has developed a private equity fund, equity and mezzanine financing for sustainable energy investments in the industrial sector in a specific region, so the Central and Eastern Europe. So you see that they define the sector and they define the region, and they developed something which was targeting that particular context and market. Similarly, we have ESI Europe and this ESI 2.0, which have addressed SMEs and energy savings insurance mechanisms. So again, the sector is very clear. Renonbil has worked on on-bill financing for energy renovation of buildings, while US is working on the development of financing schemes for energy communities. So you really see that the scope of the financing schemes developed is very large. And just to mention the last one, the acronym stands for Energy Efficiency as a Service, and the project has developed a new business model and financial structures, again for SMEs, to get energy efficiency equipment as a service. So with this overview, I now give the floor to Adrienne for the presentation of the Scope B. Thank you.
Thanks, Michele. And so I'll now present Scope B, which is a bit different in the philosophy. I think Scope A really targets both the supply and the demand of finance for investments in sustainable energy. And here in this Scope B, we're really looking more at the financial sector itself and less at the operational delivery mechanisms in general. But the main, I think the main objective of this scope is to make sustainable energy investments more attractive to private investors. So the starting point is really the need to change the approach of financial institutions to energy efficiency. In many cases, it's not well understood by financial institutions. It's perceived as risky, non-standardized, complicated, with uncertainty on the paybacks. And so this is really what this scope wants to focus on. And it's also looking at basically what is the impact of energy efficiency and small-scale renewables on the sustainability profiles and the risk profiles, and how this links to the sustainable finance policy, which, as you know, is impulsing major changes on the financial sector. One of the key points to know is this is really linked to the works of the EFIC, the Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group. You can find on their website all the information about the EFIC, but there has been lots of work around this topic, so I would encourage you to look at what has been done in order to ensure that you're aligned and building on the research and the collection of information that has been made by EFIC. And then in the scope, I think as a preliminary, really one of the key aspects is we want proposals that will engage with the private finance value chain. And here we mean, depending on what exactly you're going to deliver, but it's institutional investors, investment banks, but also retail banks. So really looking at the retail side, it's brokers, it can be fund managers, investment advisors, insurers. It really depends, but the idea is really to engage with this value chain and to ensure also that whatever great idea you come up with is adopted by the market. So we're really looking at uptake of the results by the market. Next slide, please. So in terms of, if you look at the scope, you'll see that there are different areas of work that you can tackle. They're not exclusive, but so you could be working on financial products, and that includes insurance. So it could be developing, but also evolving existing financial products. Same thing on labeling, certification of products. It could be also improving the provision of information and advice, both to the borrower or to the investor. And this can focus really on the retail side or on capital markets. This is up to you to define, but it's good to have that in mind. And then you could have activities that look at risk and sustainability assessment by private investors. So how they look at investments and how they could better integrate specificities of energy efficiency and renewables. And this could be at project level, so looking at creditworthiness, looking at what are the quality standards, how you do due diligence on a specific project, or at portfolio level. So, internal ratings-based approach, climate stress testing, the analysis of investment strategies in general. These are things that could be tackled. Next slide, please. So we're also interested in proposals that would look at the issue of data of energy efficiency investments and on their financial performance. So that could include, for example, how to report on the energy performance of investment portfolios. So standards could be one way. Just to mention here that there is more funding available on the broader topic of building energy data under the Better Reno topic. So here, if you submit something here, it's got to be really focused on the financial sector. But if it's more broadly tackling building energy data, it might be better to submit under Better Reno. And then you could have activities that are related to policymaking, supporting regulatory bodies, supervisory authorities on how to better integrate the impact of energy efficiency and renewables on their activities. So it could be on risk ratings, stress testing. You could also have activities that are focused on the sustainable finance policy of the EU. So accelerating the implementation of this policy by private investors or by private companies, which in some cases are not necessarily under the direct scope of the policy so far. Also including investments that are not yet covered by the EU taxonomy or not fully covered. So it could be proposing also improvements to that to these policies in order to better include energy efficiency. And then next slide. And I think we also have space here for proposals that would generally build the capacity of the private finance value chain on all the topics that we've mentioned above, through exchanges of best practices, development of training programs, or evolution and rollout of existing training programs. Training can be understood here as either formal training or rather capacity building and a bit less formal training. That's up to you to define. Next slide, please. So here we've got a few examples of projects that you can look up. There are more, but these are things that you could that are certainly worth looking at. Propel is a project that launched yesterday, the Sustainable Energy Finance Association in Brussels. So look it up. They have developed a full IT-supported framework to standardize ESCO projects in order to reduce the transaction cost and increase the access to finance for those projects. So this is typically de-risking, making energy efficiency investments more attractive to investors. CREM, the Carbon Risk Real Estate Monitor project, is a project that closed already 1 or 2 years ago, but is still very active as they're working with real estate investors, and in particular with the GRESB network, to integrate energy performance in the portfolio management of those investors. And this has proven to have a real impact on the strategies of investors. We also have, we've been funding and we are still funding a number of projects related to energy efficient mortgages, which have basically launched the concept of energy efficient mortgages and are developing it in different markets. So in the Nordics, Engage is working also in the Netherlands and in Spain to implement energy efficient mortgages with the banks. And this is certainly a topic where there's room for more developments. And then we have projects that are more going towards the ESG sphere. Transparence is developing an energy and ESG rating for SMEs that would allow investors to see to which extent an SME loan, a corporate loan, would comply with the taxonomy. Confess is looking to develop an ESG rating for SMEs that work in the clean energy sector, more specifically. Quest is a project that closed some time ago, which has developed a very interesting risk appraisal tool for investments in building renovation, where they integrate basically quality management services and they demonstrate how much you can reduce the uncertainty by using standard quality management standards to develop your project. Level EI is a project that's ongoing and that has that is supporting basically the development of green financial products by checking the compliance of existing green products and propose more green products. I think I need to hurry up, so I'll pass on Refine. Key point here, what makes a good proposal here under both scopes? What is really important is to have a good analysis of the market needs and the existing barriers. So your proposals will be evaluated by people who are experts in the field. Don't expect that they know everything about the market that you want to tackle. Explain what the market is, explain what the market needs are, and what are the concrete barriers. Be specific on this. We all know that there are transaction cost issues. We all know that there are standardization issues. Be specific. This is the first step. Where a lot of proposals fail is that they don't propose a sufficiently mature concept. So if you want to develop a financing scheme or a financial product, you have to know sufficiently what you're going to do. We don't expect that you know everything, but it has to be sufficiently convincing in order to get 1.5 million euros to develop it. So you need to have identified what are the gray zones, what are the risks, where you know what is going to be done, where you don't know, and it has to be sufficiently detailed. So this is really one of the key issues. And that should show how you respond to the needs of the market. And that leads to the impact section, which I'll address in a second. Sorry, can you go back? Yeah, market acceptance is really one of the key points. Show in your proposals how you have the market actors on board already at the proposal stage. Either some of them are part of the proposal, or you have letters of support, and you include them in the management of your proposal. And throughout your project, you will be working with them to check that what you're developing will be taken up at the end. These proposals cannot deliver research that is published in a scientific journal. We need results that are taken up by banks, by financial institutions. This is really key. Okay, next slide. I'll go quickly on the impact indicators. What is really important, I'm not going to go into the details. Have a look if you haven't attended the general session this morning on how to prepare a proposal. What I think is really important is that you need to clarify what concretely your project is going to deliver and quantify this using the topic-specific indicators which we provide, but also using those which are really specific to your activities. And what is really missing in a lot of cases is how your activities will deliver the broader impact on the market that we are looking at. And these are also topic-specific indicators and common indicators. So you really need to show how, for example, training 500 people, you need to explain who these people are and why this will change the market. This is really key, I think, to have a good proposal. Okay, I think you can skip the slides. Yep, skip. And so here you've got the list of the indicators for scope A. I'll let you read them at home. Scope B is the same thing. Next slide. And I think we can stop here. Thanks a lot. I'll pass the floor then to Joanna.
Thank you, Adrien. And maybe also we'll take the opportunity to remind our audience that they can already deposit their question on the Slido platform. So indeed, as Adrien said, now I give you the floor, Joanna. So Joanna is the Deputy Director in the Project and Expertise Department in CAPE. She has been working in CAPE for more than 20 years, and she has prepared and carried out national and European projects in the field of energy efficiency and renewable over the last years. So Joanna is going to share her experience as coordinator of the Finergodom project. Joanna, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celine. Good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you and Sina for inviting me to share experience in preparation and implementation of European project. My name is Joanna Ogrodniczuk, and I'm employee of the Polish National Energy Conservation Agency, which has been operating on the market for almost 30 years. Next slide, please. Just a few words about CAPE. CAPE is an energy agency which advises companies on how to optimize their energy consumption, how to increase energy efficiency in buildings, and assist municipalities in energy transformation process. We also take part in international and national projects in field of energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. Next slide, please. CAPA is taking part in European projects since 1998. Our first projects were financed under SAFE program. In total, CAPA implemented more than 100 projects. 50 were financed under Intelligent Energy Europe program, almost 30 under Horizon 2020. And now even more than 7, it's 10 projects financed under LIFE program. Next slide, please. Today I would like to present you the Finergo Dom project, which title is Financing Scheme for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Guaranteed Deep Renovation of Building Stock. The project application was prepared under the call for proposals 2018 within the topic innovative financing for energy efficiency investments. The project started in 2019 and will be completed this year. The main objective of the project was to create a financing model for investment in deep thermomodernization of multi-family buildings based on energy performance contract between the building owner and ESCO. It was done in 4 countries, in Poland and 4 other replication countries. Next slide, please. 9 organizations from 7 countries take part in the project, 2 from Poland, 2 from Bulgaria, and 1 from Romania, Austria, the Netherlands, Slovakia, and Latvia. Next slide, please. What was the key outcome in Poland, where the main model was developed? The key result of the action was the priority program operated by the National Fund of Environmental Protection and Water Management, called Renovation with Guaranteed Energy Savings EPC Plus. The program started in September 2021, and the main beneficiaries of the program were housing cooperatives, housing communities, municipalities, and commercial law companies, in which the municipality owns 10% of the shares. Those beneficiaries can receive subsidy in case they implemented investment in the renovation of building based on EPC contract. The level of subsidy depends on achieved energy savings. Now we are in the first stage of this program called pilot investments. The budget of this stage is 10 million zlotys. It means almost 2.2 million euro. CAPA has, in this stage, CAPA has the role of energy advisor to the whole process of the preparation of the investments and getting the fund from the national fund. There is also some other program prepared by Polish Development Fund, which gives possibility of buying out ESCO debt. What is important that other partners in this project prepared also the structure of financing models, guidelines, agreements for investments project based on EPC contract and according to national conditions. How we prepared the proposal, because this is the they made point, I think. The idea of the project came at the end of 2017 when a National Fund for Environmental Protection and Water Management asked CAPE to help in preparation of the proposal, which, using the existing models, would prepare the model for investment in deep thermomodernization of multi-family buildings based on energy performance contracts. At the beginning, we did some research on the market, and we found two projects: the Sunshine project and Accelerate Sunshine project, in which similar model was developed. We contacted them, and then they were interested in cooperation. At the same time, SINA launched call for proposal 2018. So we started to work on the project concept. In the meantime, we were looking, of course, for project partners. We concentrated on Central and European Europe countries. Why? Because these countries have a similar condition of the building stocks. This was the main point. We use contacts of the other projects as well as the personal one. Finally, as I said already, we built the consortium of 9 partners from 7 countries. All partners were involved in the project preparation. It means our organization work together on the project proposal. It is very important from my point of view. In this case, everybody felt responsible for the work which should be done at the preparation stage and also during the project implementation. What was the most important from my point of view during the project preparation, and what can be useful for future applicants? There are some hits. First of all, plan and stick to the timetable for working on the proposal. It is very important because it always takes more time than initially planned. Involve stakeholders from the very beginning. I have to say that we discussed the proposal and the concept with ESCO and housing cooperatives at the concept stage already. Read application form carefully, keep to the call requirements. And last but not least, be clear in your concept. Very important. Ask people who were not involved in the writing process to read it and to check if all concept is clear. Next slide, please. And as I already know, the project will be finished this year. So I have just a few hints which could help in implementation. Very important is to stick to the timetable of the project, because one delay can come after the other. Next one, communicate with the project partners. Organize even more meetings than originally planned. In our case, the monthly meetings work very, very well. And last, communicate with project advisor. She or he is there to make your project a success. If you face any problem, first read the grant agreement. Then, if something is still not clear, ask the project advisor. Keep the advisor informed about the status of the implementation of your project. If you expect some delays, inform them in advance. I wish all of you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. I think very useful hints that you shared, both for the application and the implementation stage. I think also for the applicants or the participants to this call today, I also wanted to remind the general session that we had this morning on how to prepare a good proposal. But I think it's also good to hear the similar advice, but both from our side and from former applicant side. So thanks a lot, Joanna.
Thank you.
I think it's time to look now at our Slido. So again, for the one who did not yet either vote or posted pictures, posted questions, sorry, I invite you to either use a QR code on or join on slido.com, indicating both the hashtag of the event and the session number 8. So I'm going to look at the very first question, who got 2 votes. Our proposal is about implementing energy efficient mortgages. It's however not clear whether we should submit under scope A or scope B. How should we choose? Adrien, may I give you the floor?
Yeah, actually, this is a good question. I think it really depends on what you want to do within the proposal. So we have proposals that deal with energy efficient mortgages under the innovative financing schemes part, and some under the mainstreaming part. If you're going to develop the delivery mechanism, the work with the project developers, and making the financing scheme really operational and running, and the matchmaking, you might be more under innovative financing schemes. The work under mainstreaming would be more working within the financial institutions to change, for example, the approach to customers. So yeah, they're slightly different, and it's true that it sometimes some project could be a bit in between. If it's a good proposal, it will succeed. I mean, it will find its way in any case.
Thank you. I see a question. Is it possible to involve only one country in the proposal for scope A? Michele?
Yes. No, it's not possible, because the eligibility conditions for the topic are at least 3 eligible organizations from 3 different eligible countries. What it's possible under scope A is to establish the innovative financing schemes in one country, but the proposal should demonstrate that they will expand to other eligible countries. But the number of participants is at least 3 from 3 different countries.
Thank you. The next question, we would like to develop a comprehensive mapping for building energy data, which would improve availability for financial institutions. Would this be under scope B or under the other topic you mentioned, better Reno? Adrien?
Well, it's a bit, as I explained earlier, basically, here in this topic, in the mainstreaming topic, you would have to look really at how financial institutions can use building energy data, and use it, access it, and use it in their internal work. Whereas if it's more comprehensive, working on the availability of data, matching different databases that can be existing from different sources at national level and so on, this probably fits better under the better Reno topic.
And I think the question a bit for both of you, do we need to include banks in the consortium? Adrien, maybe if you have the floor.
Well, I think no. I mean, in some cases, it's good if you have banks and if it makes sense in your proposal. But because you are targeting banks, doesn't mean that you need to have them as a partner. We have very successful projects dealing with banks who don't include the banks, and we have very successful projects which include the banks. So it's not necessary. It can be a very good point, but sometimes it's not what's most needed. And that would apply, I would say, the same for institutional investors, yeah, or other types of target groups.
Yeah, thank you. And Michele, I would address this one to you. So for scope A, can the innovative financing scheme proposed address only renewable energy investments?
Only renewables? No. The topic, I mean, clearly mentions that there's need to be a dedicated and clear focus on energy efficiency. So energy efficiency needs to be there. Energy efficiency, I mean, we discussed it has specific challenges. And so the focus of the innovative financing schemes proposed should be on sustainable energy, which means dedicated focus on energy efficiency and small-scale renewables, but only renewables, no.
Okay, and I will give you still the floor for the next one. Is it necessary to deliver investment by the end of the project in scope A?
It's not necessary. What is necessary is that the financing schemes developed are operational by the end of the project. So by the end of the project, they should be ready to finance investments, but the investments can happen after the end of the project.
And I propose, even if we have slightly after time for the last question, Adrien, maybe can we use the grant to provide the seed capital for guarantee funds?
Yeah, actually, no. This is not because we don't want you to have a guarantee fund, but basically because the eligible costs under LIFE Clean Energy Transition would have to be mostly staff costs or travel or consultancies, procurement of services, some goods, but not providing seed capital, so that wouldn't fit.
Thank you. I mean, we got lucky and we had the time to cover all the questions. If nevertheless you still have questions that you would like to ask to our team, please don't hesitate, and you can find our functional mailbox, which is cinea-life-cet@ec.europa.eu, and we will be available to answer your questions. For all of you, also in case you want to have a second chance to listen to this session today, these recordings will all be available in the coming days on the CINEA website. So don't hesitate to watch them again, whether you, if you decide to apply. And I'm sure every sentence might resonate a bit different once you are sitting down and thinking about your applications. So again, I also wanted to remind you that as from tomorrow on the B2Match platform, all of you can access and have basically space to have meetings with the other participants of today. This can also be very useful in view of future applications. So we also wish you very fruitful meeting tomorrow. And again, I want to thanks a lot our four speakers of today. It has been a pleasure to hear from them, and thanks to all of you for watching us. Have a very nice end of the afternoon and good luck for your applications.